Hey, everybody, your friendly neighborhood Glenn here on No Vacancy Live. I have fully recovered for the NYU Investment Conference. Well, maybe. We'll see. We'll find out in a second.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, Glenn Hausman here, and you are reaching No Vacancy Live and listening to my raspy voice. Why? Because I've been at the NYU Hotel Investment Conference, and boy, oh boy, is it really hard getting there. No, I'm not talking about all the meetings during the day. I'm talking about that regimen we have hitting all of those parties throughout the night. And boy, oh boy, was that a great experience. I thought there was a lot of positivity there and stuff and all that. So you probably say, hey, Glenn, where is Anthony? Anthony is on assignment today. He'll be back next week. Don't you worry about it. But in the meantime, I'm here today sharing a great story with you. To help tell today's big tale, we got our friend, Chief Development Officer at Sonesta, Mr. Brian Quinn. Brian, man, so great to see you. Welcome to No Vacancy Live, dude.
Thanks, Glenn. Really excited to be with you today.
Yeah, this is great. So, we got a lot to talk about with Sonesta because you've got a big story. But first, I want to ask you, what was your impressions of this year's NYU Hotel Investment Conference, dude?
It was definitely an optimistic tone from 6 months ago. It was great to see a lot of colleagues and friends and prospective clients out and about working on deals and talking about the future in a positive fashion. There's a few storm clouds out there around, inflation and recession fears, but I think everybody was really buoyed by all the metrics that are coming out, whether it's Cleveland Research, MMGY, PwC, that the business travel and small and medium-sized meetings and some of the international is coming back a little bit quicker than expected. So, that's great news for all of us and great news, for Sonesta. So it was definitely a very different tone than the last 2 or 3 conferences.
Yeah, but let's say that tone shifted before the NYU conference. It was after the one they held in November. I pegged the emotional shift that we all took together in the industry at the Hunter Hotel Investment Conference. That was the first one that felt normal. There was none of this, we're still this, we're still that, we're worried about this, we're worried about that. People just weren't talking about anything other than normal.
Right. Yeah, and look, I think now it's like one of those classic funny things. Like, be careful what you ask for. Right. All the business demands are going up across all the enterprises, so you've got to ramp up to be able to meet the demand, whether it's for the consumer or for the development community. So everyone's on full tilt trying to ride the wave, I think.
Yeah. So you think there's, obviously you guys are working a lot of deals, but are you feeling in general that the deal climate is where it needs to be right now? Is it meeting your expectations?
I still think it's largely around brand changes and conversions, right? I think we need to show more stabilization in more markets around demand before new supply is going to come. But you look at the new construction pipeline and it seems to have stabilized, right? Obviously some deals fell away through the pandemic. Some other things were signed up. There's some deals in flight. But I think as that bucket of projects stabilizes, as demand is growing, then, new construction will come. Everyone keeps saying, when will that switch get flipped? When demand starts to exceed, 60-70% consistently in the markets, then the new construction projects make sense. Also, we're all watching the supply chain issues as there's 2 dynamics there. There's the throughput. Can you actually get what you need to get the hotel built and outfitted? And then there's just the cost, right? We've seen the cost of some things go up and some come back down and moderate a bit. And there's a few headwinds there with China's lockdown and obviously Ukraine. But I think everyone's hopeful that as demand continues, and there's no sense that that's abating, that the supply chain piece will normalize a bit as well. I think the other thing that was kind of wild is, sort of the revenge travel piece that it's incredible to see, our other partners in the industry, the airlines, rental cars, seeing incredible demand as well. Just that, for 2.5 years, everyone sort of stayed home.
Yeah.
And put a lot of things on hold, both professionally and personally. And, you got to get people together. As a real estate finance person, I want to stand on the dirt. I want to look people in the eye when we're working on the projects. It's good due diligence and it's about respect. But I think, on the leisure side, just people, how many times can you forestall a wedding or, a memorial service or a family reunion, right?
You can't. I tried my best to forestall my wedding, but 20 years later, we're in there. All right, so
just stay engaged, everybody.
yeah,
Just stay
right.
engaged.
Let me just go back to what you're saying about the conversion part of the cycle, because
Sure.
I find that really fascinating. And for those of you just tuning in, we're talking with Brian Quinn, Chief Development Officer with Sonesta. And what I find is interesting is that there's a period of time when everyone's all about new construction, and those conversions go, they kind of quiet up a little bit.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they seem to come roaring back, giving you another lever to be able to pull sometimes when that new construction is kind of going away. It's kind of the same cycle that I see in the vendor industry, where it's either new hotels or refurbishments that are taking place, which ties into what you're talking about. Why do you think it's easier right now at this moment in the cycle for folks to go ahead and think about conversions?
Well, I think, if you look at your existing portfolio of hotels and you're trying to optimize them, there's a couple options. You can stick with your current brand. You can reposition up. You can reposition horizontally, or you can, in some cases, in certain markets, downstroke your positioning, right? So I think it's a way to unlock value, create value, and have momentum, in your portfolio, while you may have some of your new construction projects on ice. And then sometimes it's just a function of, like we had the dynamic at Sonesta where we took, quite a few assets back from some other relationships, and that forced, the conversions.
That's exactly what I want to get into by setting up the, the conversion market over there. So if you didn't see our video on Monday that we released, they made a big announcement that they got 50 franchisees already, 20 different franchisees with 50 properties all ready to commit to the Sonesta flag. So the story there is, Brian, you were able to get back some properties. Well, why don't you tell that story to our audience about how all of this came together and how you guys got set on this path to success that we'll talk about?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the initial thought process of putting Sonesta as a joined up business as it stands today. Mm-hmm. The dynamic occurred where Sonesta took those assets back from some other relationships, and that formed up the 5 Sonesta brands. They also acquired the Red Lion Hotel Corporation, which was in need of some investment, quite honestly, but it had a franchise platform already.
Right.
So it ends up being a very good marriage in that particular circumstance, because Sonesta needed the franchise platform and Red Lion needed the investment. And the opportunity to have the success that we announced at NYU with 50 franchised hotels, 20 new owners, and a commitment from each of them to do 20 more projects is really a function of that strategy coming to life. Right. We could have never entered the market last fall in October and September with the franchise offering across the Sonesta brands if we had not purchased the Red Lion Hotel Corporation, because we had the platform, right? We had QA, we had PIP, we had training, we had some of the commercial engines in place from that frame of Red Lion, and that just allowed us to accelerate the Sonesta brands. And I think you and I have talked about it before. Did the industry need more brands? I don't know. I think we're going to always have that debate, but it's been interesting. We definitely have gotten the feedback that they needed a new brand company. They're very excited to have another choice and to think through, their relationship with their existing franchisors, and just to have another choice in the markets to be able to bring, their assets to life. So.
Yeah, it's so much fun to see how it all came together. So let's break it down a little bit so people can really understand how all of this functions behind the scene. Sure. Sonesta, bought the Red Lion assets, and Red Lion and Sonesta have merged into one company. And one of the biggest benefits was being able to get the right to be able to franchise the Sonesta brands of hotels. But you already laid the groundwork. You already paid all the lawyers all that money to get everything set. Right. So now with this purchase, you don't have to do it a second time with these series of brands. You just probably have to update some documents, but you don't have to start whole cloth, right?
Yes, you're much further down the runway by having an existing document in place, an existing registration around the country, and more importantly, having those parts of the platform in place to service the hotels when they come in. But I'm going to step back for a minute, just give you an idea of what the joined up company looks like now.
Right. But also, before you say what it looks like now, let's just say Sonesta that hasn't traditionally been a franchise company.
Right.
Back in the day when the Sonesta owned it, was more of a family business, right? So
yeah, I think it's interesting. I've gone back and started to study some of the history, and the Sonebans were amazing leaders in our space. AM and Sonny launched it in 1937 when they bought the Preston Beach resort with 6 partners, right? So I love that around the partnership piece, because it means partnership is in our DNA. But this brand has grown and contracted over the last 80 plus years. We went international the first time in 1959. There's been incredibly iconic assets through the system, including the Plaza, in New York as an example. But really, if you take the shorter period of time and consider 2019, there were less than 100 hotels, less than 75 hotels in the Sonesta portfolio, and in less than 24 months, 1,200, right? So just an incredible way to bring the brand
it
back.
Sure is. Now those 75 properties, it was like Sonesta served as an ownership group as opposed to a franchise organization. That's
those were through management contracts with our capital partner, SVC, which is a little wonky.
Very different than franchising. Absolutely. I mean, some people will say it's kind of sort of the same thing, but it's not really.
No, we had the operational and the performance obligations and the stewardship of the real estate. And the franchise model, that sits with the franchisee.
Right. So I don't know what you guys would be thinking behind the scenes, but typically that sort of model limits your ability to grow. That's why the franchising part is so essential. And when you were able to get Red Lion, all of a sudden that opened up a whole world of opportunities to start franchising brands that have never been franchised before, like Sonesta Select and Sonesta ES Suites and Sonesta Simply Suites and those types of brands, right?
Yeah, and I think, if you go further back, there has been some licensing. We have a master,
again, different than franchising, right?
No question. But we do have a master franchisee as an example in Central and South America, GHL. They've got, I believe, 14. Sonestas just brought a project to us in Cali. So they're really excited that now they have a North American partner. And look, 22 is about Sonesta franchising, but it's also about the Americas. So we turned the lights back on in Canada. We've got a regional vice president working through the development effort there. We've re-engaged with GHL. They've been recapitalized a bit. We're going to hire some talent to handle the Caribbean and Mexico. So we're setting 22 up to have the Americas to have the full offering of projects. But if you let me step back for 1 second, I think the joined up company is just, it's incredible what has been done. Over $3 billion in assets under management. So even with the stewardship of the managed portfolio, it's incredible, our obligation to SVC. We both mentioned 1,200 locations. SVC, our capital partner, elected to extend all the management agreements for 15 years and made a commitment of between $500 and $600 million to be invested in their owned Sonestas over the next 24 to 36 months. That's an incredible commitment from SVC, an incredible obligation for us at Sonesta. But for a prospective franchisee or a prospective development partner that wants us to manage an asset, that confidence and that platform being so solid is incredible, confidence builder as they're making their, decision.
And it's one of those things that really puts you really much farther ahead than you would have normally been under typical circumstances if you were a newly emerging company that didn't have some of these opportunities. So I think it really helped you skip several years, right? Particularly the Red Lion purchase and the story of from March to September, being able to get that deal done and get all the franchise disclosure documents ready to go so you could announce at the lodging conference that you're ready to start getting it done, and then getting 50 deals by June 1st of 2022, 14 months later. Pretty impressive all around, pretty exciting, and hopefully for you guys creates a groundswell of excitement that you're going to be able to leverage.
Yeah, and it's an incredible gift that we keep receiving from our corporate relationships and our strategic partners. We also had the acquisition in New York. You have to be in New York if you're ever going to launch.
I know. I'll get to let's get to that. I just want to take one piece at a time so people could
All right,
understand. So,
let's go back to that platform for just a minute.
yeah, and then we'll get on to
we're now one of the largest hospitality employers with 10,000 associates too.
Ooh,
That's
and the largest
big,
hotel company.
big change, right?
Mhm.
Big change for us. 100,000 rooms, 8 countries.
Right.
So it's an incredible business joined up. That's taking its rightful place in the industry to punch above its weight for sure.
Yeah, it sure is. Okay, so now this winter or spring, I'm forgetting. The months are all bounding together. You made this big announcement recently. I'll use that word instead. That the Denahan portfolio you guys were able to purchase. Now, Denahan was a local New York City group that has a number of great hotels around town under brands. I think was it the Affinia that they?
Yeah, that was part of a relationship.
Right. Right. So so you got 4 different hotels, I believe, in this particular deal, but in particular, you got the James brand, which has got a lot of opportunity for you as well, right?
Absolutely. First of all, if you're a brand, you've got to be in New York, right? So
Right.
It was the number one target for our capital partner, SVC. Through some strategic relationships across our executive team, we were able to make that transaction happen. So the Benjamin is going to become a Royal Sonesta, or is a Royal Sonesta. We took possession of them about 30, 45 days ago. I'm sitting in the Shelbourne, which is the Sonesta Shelbourne. And then we were able to bring Sonesta Select and Sonesta ES to the market with the Gardens in the 50 as well. So we've got 4 of the 5 Sonesta brands in New York very quickly as well.
Amazing.
But, you're seeing a common theme, right? There's a strategy here. We're executing on the strategy. We've been given the tools by RMR and SVC and the Sonesta leadership to go out and get it done. And we're just very deliberately doing it. And the other thing is, we're so excited to have John Murray on board as our CEO. He's been a franchisee. Now he's going to be a franchisor. There's a incredible.
Brian, you've got to explain who John Murray is, because a lot of our folks have no idea.
John Murray's our new CEO.
But where did he come from? And share that context, because again, all of this stuff can be confusing if you're coming from the outside.
Understood. So he was the president of SVC, which is a REIT that holds a lot of the hospitality real estate.
So they actually own the
bricks and mortar,
right?
bricks and mortar, absolutely.
And part of all of this was that they were branded by different companies, and SVC was able to take back a good chunk of properties from a couple of other major companies, opening up the door for all of this to happen. Now, the gentleman who ran that is now the new CEO with you guys. So they're interrelated, but separate companies.
Yes. But the benefit of having John in that seat is that's
right.
a portfolio that he amassed. He knows it intimately. Every type of deal structure under the sun was used to build that portfolio up. But I think the other thing that it informs him and the entire leadership team is that we've been franchisees, the collective we, right? So you can be a better franchisor when you've been a franchisee, right? So maintaining that owner's lens, understanding what the owners need, having the standards take care of consumer items, but also be rooted in return on investment is incredibly important. But that's built into our DNA. It's built into what we do every day. And I just think we're going to be able to make better decisions and make quicker decisions to come to market. And they're going to be rooted in those things. So they'll be more accepted by the development community and the ownership community. And they'll see that stewardship, that's built in of finding those standards that take care of the guests, but also have a return for the owner.
Right. Yeah. It really, all of this makes sense when you go through it step by step by step by step. So back to where we are right now. She recently made the, this opportunity to get these different properties in New York City. Again, that's terrific, because for those of you who don't know, one of the major strategies for brands, particularly in the full service arena, is got to be in all those gateway cities. In New York, if you're not in New York, it's almost like you don't exist. Nothing personal. Asia, we know that you're a powerhouse over there too. But in this part of the universe, North America, Europe, if you don't have a property in New York, it's almost like you're not recognizable. Now you've got 2 of the top, your 2 top brands there, plus 2 others as well. Great platform again for you to start to get into the other cities. Could you talk a little bit about the James and what that is and its DNA? And then I'd love to know how that compares to the Royal Sonesta.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited as that transaction was working its way through the process. Something that was brought to bear there was the opportunity to acquire the the James Hotels brand's IP, right? The branding part of it. And there is one existing hotel in New York, the James New York Nomad is under a license agreement. And that really fills some white space that we had around the upper upscale luxury, sort of straddling those two a bit in the lifestyle space. And we know, just from NYU, that's just, it's in demand by the consumer, and the developers and the owners know how to drive revenue through that model, right? It's more design led, it's more focused on F&B, and it's curating an experience very differently for the guest. It allows the guest to imprint a little bit about what they want during the stay. It allows the ownership to do that. So if you think about the James New York Nomad, incredible F&B offerings there, a bit of a speakeasy feel, high-end Italian restaurant. So you're able to offer the guest a full and rich experience across not just the lodging component, but also around food and beverage and entertainment. And a lot of it too is, I love the design of the lobby there. It's a place you want to be. And it is, it is a bit of a status dynamic too. People want to be seen there. There's a certain air around being able to be part of it. I think what's so exciting for me with the James is that, they were one of the earlier lifestyle brands, Well, every brand has its journey, and just the way that the James rolled out maybe did not have that sequential growth and continuous growth that sometimes you hope for when you're a brander. But it did resonate. It has incredible goodwill out there. And during NYU, one of the most happy coincidences, almost every meeting, somebody brought up, and we may have something that might work for James for you. So that's kind of exciting. And it allows us to, tout yet a 16th brand, right? So it also helps with the broader narrative for the business.
Yeah. And I bet that you could actually still remember all the names of your brands, unlike some of the other companies. There's so many, it's hard to believe how many brands.
Well, when you start having more than, fingers and toes.
I know it starts to become complicated. All right. So so the James really focus on that, that boutique kind of feel. And I use that in terms of, instead of using the word lifestyle, or more of a modern luxury type of feel. Is kind of.
I think our industry will at some point figure out what to call that segment. Everyone has a little different bit of perspective.
Yep.
I think what's most important about it is the consumer wants it. They want design-led offerings. They want some entertainment. They want a residential feel. They want fits and finishes that are reinforcing to their lifestyle. And because you deliver on that, you're able to drive a rate that gives the developer and the owner a good return, right? So it's a great product where you're meeting the value proposition of the consumer and the owner.
So how would you then contrast that to Royal Sonesta? Is it fair to say that Royal Sonesta is more of a traditional luxury type of a product?
Yeah, look, we re-energized that brand now as the Royal Sonesta, and we're having some fun with the DNA that's being put.
I wish I was having fun at the New Orleans property right now.
Yes,
honestly.
I was at Jazz Fest in May, walking right by that hotel. Look, Royal Sonesta is going to be upscale, upper upscale, full service, 3-meal-a-day restaurant, meeting space. We're going to give it a personality, but it's going to capture a larger consumer segment than the James, right? There's a definite difference in some of the customers that cross over. So you could have markets that have both, like in New York.
What you can do.
We'll have multiple offerings. I think when you think about the James, the other thing is that traveler wants access to experiences outside the hotel that also reinforce their lifestyle, where they can learn something and those kind of things. Where I think with Royal, we're going to just cast a bit of a wider net, but solidly positioned in upper upscale, and in some cases nudging around luxury as well. SVC, our capital partner, put a goal out there to get into markets like New York, LA, and Miami. So we're just excited to be able to check that box for them. But back to what I was sharing around John Murray is that we do see an obligation for us to have the major markets covered, right? And the beauty of this experience for me is that we do have hotels in nearly all top 25 and almost all top 50 MSAs, but we also like to have iconic hotels in the gateways, right? So, and we have a lot of them covered already, but New York was a gap, and then we're on the hunt in Miami and LA as well.
Right. Yeah. And that's going to be important, I think, again, for that brand recognition, for that status factor. And once you have those in place, you'll be able to really get onto what I think is going to be your next thing, which is going from the Americas back into other parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got to build those hubs so we can build the spokes and the brand extensions, and we do see that as our obligation in order to continue to have a great franchise offering. But you're exactly right. We as I mentioned earlier, we flipped the switch back on in Canada, and we started to have some success there. We re-engaged with our capital partner GHL down in Central and South America, and we're gonna stretch them to do a few more deals and give them a few more brands to work with. So that'll be fun. And then we're also hiring some additional resources in order to be able to service the hotels there and to work on the development. Leisure, destinations and leisure have led us out of this crisis a little different than 9/11, a little different than the real estate crash. This time, the leisure hotels and the destinations hotels have led the way. So the importance of the Caribbean and the importance of Mexico and Central South America, the market has brought that to us. And it's the right thing to do strategically. Get the adjacencies sorted out of Canada and Mexico and work with the partnership better. And then, we like to tease each other and say global domination is next, but it's tongue in cheek. And then I guess we call Bezos or Musk if we're going to go off planet with a brand offering. But
maybe strike a deal with both of them. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe. I think that this first space hotel story has been going around from like 1965, right? I know one of the companies is claiming they're going to do it again. Yeah. But maybe you guys will actually be the first ones to do it, right?
I have nothing to announce in that regard today, but it is.
No, but you have nothing to announce. Maybe there's something to announce. All right, everybody, you heard it here first. I also want to send a special shout out to New York emergency crews for having their sirens affect our show every day this week. Thank you, New York City. It's not New York City unless you get to hear those sirens in the background, right, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. and being international also is in our DNA. We first went international in 1959. We continue to have a footprint in Egypt. We're already in 8 countries, and there's a lot of goodwill, across Western Europe and Asia for Sonesta, and even for some of the Red Lion brands at different times in their lives. Some of them have had some extensions in those different markets. And if I say anything else about the 50-20-20, I think the other thing that we are so encouraged by is that the 20 new franchisees of the Sonesta branded hotels really come from a great cross section of the business. Right. We have some institutional ownership. We have some owner-operator ownership. We've got some premier management companies taking on some big portfolio pieces of the Sonesta franchise business, some family offices, and then members of the AHOA community. So we just like how that all rolled out and played out, because that's a great base to build off of, and the different constituencies that will make you a good franchisor. Yeah.
Could you comment a little bit on how the Red Lion side of the universe and the ABVI stuff kind of fits into everything that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think very quickly, Keith and
that's of course Keith Pierce.
Keith Pierce, the president of franchise. He saw the vision and the opportunity to bring the scale to both sides of the business, and Red Line needed an investment, and it needed more scale, and as we mentioned earlier, Sonesta needed the franchise platform, but very quickly Keith and team went about starting to bring some cost savings to our franchisees, but because we were a larger business with Sonesta, we were able to bend back some of the different fees and be able to add some value for the franchisees. So we also checked that box pretty quickly. Now that's a journey that never really ends, but that is in flight, and some of that savings is starting to be enjoyed already. In addition, we went out and started to re-engage with our franchise community on that side. I think between Keith Pierce, the president of franchise, and Jordan, who runs franchise services for us, Chris Trick, our chief marketing officer, we probably did about 15 or 20 road shows out around the country, re-engaging with our franchisees, giving them, an idea about the Sonesta journey and also starting to bring them some of those scale successes. I would say right now, we feel pretty good that we've joined up a lot of the back of the house also for our company together. So HR is now combined, legal is now combined, some of the purchasing efforts are combined, finance is combined, and now we've got to get after the pieces that touch the consumer, right? So
that's rough, man. It's a big challenge for all of you to bring these two companies together in a way that's going to set you up for continued success. So now you've gotten all the back of house stuff done as far as consumers are, and now how's this going to look going forward on the consumer side of things?
Yeah, so we're in flight with all those plans right now. So we will action against this at some point. We are running 2 frequency programs right now. We have Hello Rewards with the Red Lion business, and we have Travel Pass. My expectation is at some point they will come together in order to be able to offer the recognition across the system over time. But that work is in flight. We know that's important work to our franchisees on both sides, all of our franchisees, because that's a bit of a hedge against the OTAs and some of the more expensive channels, to have a more direct and intimate relationship with the guests. So we have sort of an action plan against all the commercial engines in order to be able to make sure that they're robust and providing the right return. So one shining example where we have gotten the work done already is around global sales. We brought executives from both sides of the enterprise that came together. Neither business probably had a big enough footprint because you couldn't with the base. But now together we have a very senior person running that business, and now we have 25 global salespeople across the country calling on major accounts and nurturing those bigger businesses and base business and commercial business for all of the 1,200 hotels. So that's just one example. Already in market, we've got a global sales effort that's nearly on par with our competitors.
Excellent. What do you think you're going to get to 100 on Sonesta?
Forward-looking.
I know forward-looking statements may not be taken.
Can't be in trouble. Our general counsel's downstairs in the lobby, so I don't want to.
All right, so we'll just stick with the generic. We hope to double the size of our portfolio within the next 12 months or so. All right.
Double-digit growth year over year would be nice.
Right, there you go. That's beautifully specifically vague. I like that, Brian.
You can always count on me for that if you need.
Yeah, man. Is there anything else that you want to add? I feel like we covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. So I want everybody to listen back to this podcast at half speed, since Brian and I went through this at record pace. Any other thoughts? Did we miss anything?
No, I'm so thankful to share the story with you again. And Sonesta appreciates your partnership. We're excited to talk to your audience. And if you have not booked your travel for the summer, get after it because prices are going up.
Oh, yeah. Thank goodness I booked mine. And little tippy tip for everybody, book your flights to the lodging conference now. From what I've seen on my airline of choice, it's going to be rough out there. Brian, thank you so much for being here. Do me a favor, just stick around for a sec while I wrap up. Really appreciate you, man. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. That was great, but it was a little too much for you to watch and digest all at the same time. Why not download the audio version of our show? There's a reason we're in the top 1% of all podcasts. Listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Honestly, wherever you download your shows, you'll find No Vacancy Live there. Of course, Anthony's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and be kind to yourself. See you all another time.